The old station wagon sputtered, coughed, and then died with a final, disheartening wheeze. "Well, that's just great," muttered David, thumping the steering wheel. Beside him, his wife Sarah sighed, her eyes scanning the dense, unfamiliar woods that pressed in on either side of the narrow dirt road. In the back, 10-year-old Lily and 7-year-old Tom were already bickering. "Are we there yet?" Tom whined, kicking the back of Lily's seat. "No, we are definitely not there yet," Lily retorted, pushing his leg away. David got out, slammed the door, and walked to the front of the car, peering under the hood. A cloud of steam billowed out, smelling faintly of burnt oil. "Looks like we overheated," he announced, wiping a smudge of grease from his forehead. "And we're out of water." Sarah joined him, a worried frown creasing her brow. "What do we do? We haven't seen another car for an hour." "We'll have to walk," David said, his voice trying to sound more confident than he felt. "There must be a town or a ranger station somewhere down this road." So with a few snacks and a water bottle almost empty, the family began their trek. The sun, once a cheerful presence, was beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The woods grew darker, the shadows longer and more menacing. Lily clung to Sarah's hand, while Tom, usually so boisterous, walked quietly beside David, his eyes darting nervously into the encroaching gloom. As twilight deepened, the sounds of the forest intensified. Twigs snapped, leaves rustled, and unseen creatures chirped and hooted. Lily imagined glowing eyes watching them from the undergrowth. Tom swore he heard a wolf howl in the distance. "It's just an owl, sweetie," Sarah soothed, though her own heart was thumping a little faster. David, ever the practical one, realized they couldn't keep walking in the dark. "We need to build a fire and find some shelter," he declared, surveying their surroundings. They found a small, relatively clear patch of ground beneath a towering oak tree. David, with some help from Lily, gathered dry branches and leaves, while Sarah tried to distract Tom with a game of I Spy. Starting the fire proved harder than David anticipated. The matches seemed reluctant to light, and the tinder was damp. Finally, with a puff of smoke and a cheer from the children, a small flame flickered to life, casting dancing shadows on the trees. The warmth of the fire was a comfort, a small bastion against the wilderness. They huddled together, sharing the last of their crackers and a single apple. Sarah told stories, and David pointed out constellations appearing in the sky above the tree canopy. Even Lily and Tom stopped bickering, finding solace in the shared adventure, however unplanned it was. As the night deepened, the air grew colder. David and Sarah took turns keeping watch and adding wood to the fire. Lily and Tom, exhausted, eventually drifted off to sleep, curled up against their parents. David looked at Sarah, her face illuminated by the flickering firelight, and a sense of quiet determination settled over him. They would be okay. They were a family, and they would get through this together. The next morning, with the first rays of sunlight piercing through the leaves, they continued their walk. They were tired, hungry, and a little bruised, but there was a new resilience in their steps. Just as their hope was beginning to wane, they heard it. The faint, unmistakable sound of a car engine. A small, rusty pickup truck eventually appeared around a bend, driven by an elderly man with a weathered face and kind eyes. He stopped, eyed their disheveled appearance, and without a word, offered them a ride to the nearest town. Back in civilization, showered and fed, the family looked back on their unexpected adventure. The fear had subsided, replaced by a strange sense of accomplishment. They had faced the unknown, relied on each other, and emerged stronger. Lily even admitted that it had been a little bit cool, and Tom, with wide eyes, recounted tales of the giant bear he had seen, which was probably just a very large squirrel. David and Sarah knew it had been a harrowing experience, but as they watched their children laughing, they realized something important. Sometimes, getting lost was the best way to find out what truly mattered. The late afternoon sun dappled through the canopy of the ancient forest, painting shifting patterns of light and shadow on the leaf-strewn path. Maya, Liam, Chloe, and Noah, a quartet of inseparable friends since kindergarten, ventured deeper into the woods, their laughter echoing amongst the trees. Their mission, as declared by the ever-adventurous Maya, was to find the Whispering Falls, a legendary waterfall rumored to be hidden within the heart of these very woods. Liam, ever the pragmatist, consulted a worn map he'd meticulously drawn, while Chloe, a budding botanist, pointed out interesting flora along the way. Noah, with his camera perpetually at the ready, captured every moment. Suddenly, a rustling in the undergrowth caught their attention. A small, fluffy rabbit with surprisingly large ears darted across their path, stopping to twitch its nose at them before disappearing into a thicket. Chloe gasped, delighted. "Did you see that?" It looked almost magical. As they pressed on, the woods grew denser, the sunlight struggling to penetrate the thick foliage. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine. The path, once somewhat discernible, began to fade, replaced by a maze of intertwined roots and mossy rocks. Doubts began to creep in. "Are you sure this is the right way, Liam?" Noah asked, lowering his camera. "It feels like we're just wandering." Liam frowned at his map, a bead of sweat trickling down his temple. "It should be. The old oak tree, the double-pronged path, everything matches." Just as frustration began to set in, a low, melodic hum reached their ears. It was faint at first, then grew steadily louder, a gentle, almost ethereal sound that seemed to resonate with the very trees. "Listen," Maya whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. Following the sound, they pushed through a curtain of thick ivy and emerged into a clearing. Before them, nestled between towering moss-covered rocks, was a sight that stole their breath. A waterfall, not thundering and powerful, but delicate and shimmering, cascaded down into a crystal-clear pool. The water seemed to glow with an inner light, and as it fell, it created a soft, whispering sound that was truly enchanting. "The Whispering Falls," Chloe breathed, tears pricking her eyes. Noah quickly raised his camera, capturing the magical scene. Liam, for once, forgot his map, simply gazing at the beauty before him. Maya, with a triumphant grin, dipped her hand into the cool, clear water, drawn on parchment that felt like dry leaves. Elias traced a finger over the faded ink, following the winding path that led to a small hand-drawn X deep within the Whispering Woods. The inscription beneath it simply read, "The Silent Crypt." Elias had inherited the map, and the cryptic instructions that came with it, from his eccentric great-aunt. She'd always spoken of hidden wonders and ancient secrets, but Elias, a pragmatic botanist, had dismissed most of it as fanciful ramblings. Yet, the map's details, surprisingly accurate for the surrounding flora, had piqued his interest. He set off on a cool, autumnal morning, the air crisp with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The Whispering Woods lived up to its name. A soft, constant rustling of leaves sounded like hushed conversations carried on the breeze. Sunlight dappled through the thinning canopy, painting shifting patterns on the forest floor. After hours of trekking, just as the sun began its descent, Elias stumbled upon it. It wasn't the grand, Gothic structure he might have imagined. Instead, it was a modest crypt, built of weathered gray stone, almost swallowed by a tangle of ivy and moss. The door, heavy and made of dark wood, was bound by iron straps that had long since rusted. Above the door, a single, unadorned gargoyle stared out with empty eyes, its features worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. A sense of profound quiet hung around the crypt, deeper than the usual forest silence. No birds sang nearby, no squirrels chattered. It was as if the very air held its breath. Elias approached cautiously, his boots crunching on the fallen leaves. He ran a hand over the cold stone, feeling the coarse texture of the ancient edifice. The instructions from his great-aunt had mentioned a riddle, a key hidden in plain sight. He circled the crypt, searching for any clue. He noticed a faint carving on the back wall, almost completely obscured by ivy. Carefully, he pulled back the clinging vines, revealing a series of symbols: a moon, a star, and a stylized tree. Below them, a single word, whisper. Elias thought back to his great-aunt's stories. She had often spoken of the language of the forest. He leaned closer to the word, and as if on instinct, he whispered it aloud. Whisper! A low rumble, like stones grinding together, emanated from within the crypt. The gargoyle above the door seemed to twitch, and then, with a slow, agonizing groan, the heavy wooden door creaked inward just a few inches, revealing a sliver of impenetrable darkness. A chill, colder than the autumn air, seeped out from the opening. It wasn't the chill of a dungeon, but something far older, far more profound. It smelled of earth, of time, and of something indescribably ancient. Elias peered into the darkness, his heart thumping. What secrets lay within this silent crypt, hidden for so long in the heart of the Whispering Woods? He hesitated, a mixture of fear and insatiable curiosity warring within him. The secrets of his great-aunt, and perhaps the very woods themselves, awaited him. Rumbling, its water wheel long seized by rust and time. Locals whispered tales of the miller, a reclusive man who vanished one night, leaving behind only the scent of fear and the faint, rhythmic creak of the mill's gears, turning on their own. One stormy evening, a curious traveler, lost and seeking shelter, stumbled upon the mill. He pushed open the heavy, groaning door, the sound echoing through the cavernous space. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of moonlight that pierced a broken window, illuminating ancient machinery draped in cobwebs. A chill snaked up his spine, colder than the biting wind outside. As he moved deeper, a faint, rhythmic creaking began. Creak, creak, creak! It was the sound of the mill's gears, slowly turning, just as the legends described. But there was no wind to move them, no water flowing to power the wheel. The traveler's breath hitched in his throat. He fumbled for his lantern, its feeble glow doing little to dispel the oppressive gloom. Then, a whisper, soft as the rustling of dry leaves, slithered from the shadows. He never left. The traveler froze, his heart hammering against his ribs. He spun around, trying to pinpoint the source of the voice, but saw only dancing shadows. The creaking intensified, faster now, more frantic. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something metallic, like old blood. He felt a cold touch on his shoulder, like skeletal fingers brushing his coat. A silent scream tore through his mind as he scrambled for the door, tripping over unseen obstacles. The whispers grew louder, surrounding him, weaving a tapestry of despair and ancient sorrow. You will join him. Bursting out into the raging storm, the traveler ran, not daring to look back, the creaking of the phantom mill echoing in his ears long after he was out of sight. He never spoke of what he saw, or what he felt, that night in the old mill. But sometimes, on particularly dark and stormy nights, he swore he could still hear the faint, rhythmic creak, creak, creak of gears turning endlessly in the heart of the woods.